Hello, welcome back to the Red and Black Wrestling. I am joined by Paolo Ciatto of Iona Prep, 2023 CHSA sectional champion and New York State place finisher. How are you doing today, brother?
I'm doing pretty good. Nice day out and just enjoying life.
It's a beautiful Mother's Day today. The weather was great today, by the way.
Yeah, it was.
Um, Kind of catching up and everything before we started filming. Um, so let's kind of get into the the very beginning, right? Because um, every time I do an interview, I always tend to reiterate that everyone kind of gets into any sport or activity in different ways. Not everyone kind of tends to have the same like origin story, quote unquote.
Yeah.
So, how did yours come about? When were you introduced to the sport of wrestling? And how was that introduced to you?
So I started wrestling like literally like as soon as I could walk. I mean, I've been wrestling since like I was 4 years old. My dad is a black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. But before that, I was actually pretty delayed as a kid, like with like walking and talking and stuff like that. And my dad, he's a pretty smart guy when it comes to that stuff. He was just like he just heard that wrestling really helps develop people
Mm.
like motor function skills and all that. So more so to like help me grow. And I fell in love with the sport immediately. And then probably fifth grade, I really just started to take the sport seriously and actually trying to like get better and try to win some big tournaments and stuff like that.
And then I guess how long were you wrestling up until, or when did that transition kind of lead you into Iona Prep and your high school wrestling career?
So, I went to like a multitude of coaches like right before Deagle. So, like in elementary school, my beginning coaches, I was at this club called Beast Training,
Mm.
and all the coaches there are great, love them, still talk to them this day. But the old owner who owned the club, so they owned their old club, and the guy, like he couldn't keep up with stuff anymore. So John Deagle, he bought my old club, and then I joined Empire. And I hit off the bat with John immediately. I loved his coaching and stuff like that. I just love the club. There's a multitude of coaches, and probably a familiar face that was AJ Kovacs. So being a Danbury guy, I knew him my whole life, and when he made that transition over to Iowa Prep, I saw his early success. Saw that he's competing in the New York State tournament, stuff like that. So that was like a big motivating factor to join the Gaels.
And that kind of I guess must have also opened the door and like kind of like paved that way a little bit, like you said, like seeing that success, being like, oh wow, this is very achievable. Like, so this path is not easier to follow, but one that's kind of easy to get behind as far as
Yeah,
like the reason to go to Iona Prep. And immediately you were kind of like one of the top guys immediately,
yeah,
um always challenging yourself, never being afraid to put yourself up against the bigger guys in the bracket. I know particular instance when kind of like when I first started doing this, even when the red and black wrestling kind of first came about, you were just a freshman and
yeah,
you were actually wrestling my brother.
yeah, exactly.
And I was like, wow, this kid's actually giving him like a pretty good go. Like, you were staying tough, you were staying in there, and you kept challenging him multiple times. And that's what kind of piqued my interest at first, because, many people kind of get turned off by that. Just one loss. Ah, I don't want to wrestle this person again. But you kept challenging yourself to keep wrestling the better people in your bracket, and you kept narrowing that gap. And it was fun matches. I actually enjoyed watching you guys wrestle every single time. It was great. And I guess even with that kind of mindset and training, fast forwarding into, I believe you finished fourth that year in the 2022 CHSA sectional championships, right? I
Yep.
believe you had Shane Minahan in the semifinals
Yep.
and then had a tough third place match. How did that go into your sophomore year training, going back into the room next season, sophomore year, new motivation, knowing that you're right there with these guys? Unfortunately, falling a little bit short, but you're right there.
Yeah. So I mean, honestly, your brother helped me out a lot between really like motivating me always, like trying to try to close that gap, try to get that win when it counts and stuff like that. And that whole off season, I was just in the room nonstop, just knowing like of that feeling of not winning that tournament, being able to go to the state tournament. That like really, that hurt. So I was like, I'm not gonna let this happen again. Like I'm gonna keep training and training. And I went to a bunch of camps. I was competing majority of the summer. Wrestling was the whole summer there, and just getting better, and it paid off.
100%. And speaking of it paying off, in just your second year competing in that tournament, you're standing atop of the podium
Yeah.
and a few weight classes up nonetheless, making that jump from 118 to 138. First of all, how how was that jump? First of all, was that tough for you, or was that pretty? It seemed pretty seamless as far as your performance.
Yeah, honestly, I love like wrestling higher weights. I always tell everyone like the lighter weight classes are the fast paced, like really speed. Like the middleweight, it's somewhat speed, very technical, and then like the weight I'm wrestling at now, 170, it's a lot of raw strength and stuff like that. But I've been wrestling for such a long time, so I kind of had like an IQ of how to change my style a little bit and how to be able to, be able to compete with these guys and all that. But going up that weight that much, like I was really, you could tell everyone was shocked. Like I think it was just a kind of a sense of puberty throughout the
Mhm.
years. Like I just like I gained a lot more muscle. My face was more mature and stuff like that. So yeah, as you said, the jump from like 118 to 138 was pretty easy.
And then, like I mentioned, you're now atop of that podium. Getting it done the second time, um, against a teammate. Now, was that something that was discussed in the Iona room? The possibility of, hey, you might be wrestling your teammate in the finals.
Yeah, 100%. Especially that sophomore year. I wasn't the only one. We had Max and Costa. That
Mm,
was probably out of all 4 years of Iona, that was 100%. I think our most
yeah,
deep team. 100%. We literally our backups could have all stated like
yeah.
all those kids were like everyone was good. Even another kid, Jude Bellatoni with Justin. He was another one that could place at that tournament. So like we kind of knew coming into that season, like yeah, someone's got to wrestle one of their teammates in the finals.
Mm,
So and I love Kevin. Kevin's one of my really good friends. I still talk to him this day and all that. So it's all love. It sucks because it was his senior year and stuff
mm.
like that. But you saw right after that match, immediate hugs and
Yeah, you guys
no hard
embraced. There was no
feelings.
hard feelings,
No hard
and
feelings.
and I do actually have
There we go. I see it.
beautiful kind of a tradition when we have everyone on here for an episode to kind of walk us through, recap, give us a breakdown of their CHSA finals performance. And I do have that video between you and Kevin here. Um, I believe for this match, my personal footage, I didn't have the first half, so I was relying on the live stream footage, which is pretty choppy right now. Aha, there we go. Much
There we
better. Much
go.
better. We can actually see you guys. And immediately with the level changing,
Yeah,
constantly with the
that's
feet movement.
that's a big thing I really was working on was just keeping my hands and feet moving. It's still something I work on to this day is just always keeping active. But, your hands and feet have to work in sync. That's a big part of wrestling.
100%. And with this beautiful blast double, which you're pretty much patented for at this point,
Mm.
um, how much do you practice that signature double of yours? Is that something that
So
you're kind of looking for in every match, or is it really just happen that naturally to you?
honestly, so I've always liked the like double eggs. As you know, I have a really good relationship with AJ Ferrari,
Mhm.
and I was training with him a lot in the summer and stuff like that too. And he really did help me hone in on that skill of his double egg, which is a world class double of working those level changes and then just blasting right through the guy. So I kind of got it almost almost down to a T of just
Nice.
getting that level change right and getting that reaction right.
And without, I guess, spilling too much of the secret sauce, what would your personal advice be for guys who really like the double and are trying to put that more into their offense?
If you like a double leg, I feel like the biggest thing that you have to work on is getting the guy's feet to either like extend, getting him out of that stance. Because as you know, like as a wrestler yourself, if you're in a low stance and your knees are bent and you try double legging someone, as a defensive guy, you're stuffing that 99% of the
Yeah.
time, unless this guy's a freak of nature. So the biggest thing was really honing in on those fakes, really stepping and committing to those fakes, moving the guy around so I can get him to come up. And, my level's lower than his level, and you could just blast through them easy. It's such an easy takedown if we can just get the timing right.
Oh yeah, 100%. And even like what you mentioned, like adding your face into it, really getting the guy to step and put the weight and throwing his equilibrium off. So when you get to that double, it's a very easy finish. And you're doing a great job controlling the wrist here and really keeping him on bottom here. Looking to throw in a boot too. I love legs. That was
Yeah,
my thing on top. I was
I
always
love
looking to throw in a
legs.
boot.
I'm always loved Top. Top has always been one of my actually, key components in my wrestling. As you know, I love. I have multitude of things doing. I love my spa ride. That's really my bread and butter.
Oh yeah.
It's not really a secret. Everyone sees me go right off the bat to it, but that's been something with one of my earlier coaches that all our guys from you know all of us you see all of us do it. We really that's all we practice on top is getting that spa riding at that guy's hands forward.
Transitioning to a beautiful sweep here. And even when like watching like your matches, if I see you even get like a bar on top, I'm like, okay, he's got this one pretty much finished. Like just like knowing that like how strong you are in that top position too, like your strength being a very important part of that as well.
Yeah, 100%. Top is one of those areas to me. If I just need one good thing on you. If I have one good thing on you, I'll hold you down for the 2 minutes.
And I feel like top is also such a huge game changer too. It's like
Oh yeah, that is.
with 3 point takedowns now, like 3 point
And the
near
back
fall
points.
evens it, and 4 points
Mhm.
now with a near fall, you're pretty much getting those points back.
Exactly. And just two takedowns and two turns, you're a point away from attack. It's really nuts.
And not too many people are great on bottom. So being good on top is really, you know, important for your wrestling. And honestly, being good on bottom as well to not get turned
Yeah.
in those positions, especially if you're up a few points. Back in on that good double, looking to transition to a pin there. Rick Harville being very aware to get to his stomach there, fighting really hard. And back into that claw.
Oh, I think right here, yep, I love that. I love that breakdown from there. If you can't pick the guy up right there, you do a split leg and bring him right down.
Oh yeah. A lot of I feel like newer wrestlers especially make the mistake of pulling the people like their opponent on top of them rather
Yeah.
than doing that split step where it's harder for the guy to really switch his hips, and if he does, you're in a shot or a double where you're easier to kind of get your hips back in
Yeah.
position. You know, that like you mentioned, splitting the leg there is very important detail that a lot of people, don't really pick up on,
Yep.
wasting a lot of energy trying to, hit it lift mat return, trying to lift. At that point, they're getting banged for stalling, and then they're
Stalling,
forced to
yeah.
let the person go.
Oh, yep, exactly. I think through
Constantly.
this period, I think I was able to ride him out this period. I mean, this is the point where I talk about top is such a crucial thing. Is top it people on bottom, especially you ride someone out for over a minute.
Mhm.
Getting off a bottom is already hard as like already, and just being held down is just it's demoralizing and it's tiring. People
It
gas out
is.
and they don't want to wrestle anymore.
And it's very funny that you say it demoralizing because it is. Not too many people really think too much about that. When you're being held down for a minute, 2 minutes, 3 minutes, the thought that goes in your head is really, what am I supposed to do? You
Good,
start to
yeah.
see the people start looking in their corner at their coaches frustrated. The mental aspect starts to come into play. And getting into that boot with a nice, good breakdown. Looking to score here with a flyaway. And you're also doing a very good job too at working side to side, not staying at, parallel to the hips of McCarville. Like when, especially when you're working the spiral in the wrist, you're going side to side, constantly working for a turn on both sides, not just the same side. Looking to throw that boot on that opposite end if those hips come up. You're threatening so many different angles
Yeah. No, that's the biggest thing. If you can threaten both sides of the body on top, it's really hard to do anything because a guy can counter anything that you really do.
here. And 10 seconds left here.
Yeah.
And then the friendship and the embrace there, which is very, very important, not to kind of let this
Yep.
moment affect that really. As cheesy as, kind of something like that might sound, is that's important to a team aspect as well,
Very important. Yep.
especially when, like you mentioned, you had um Max and Costa right after you guys
Yep.
in that same situation, wrestling each other for that gold, you know, and even like you had mentioned before too, any one of you guys could have made the podium at the state tournament too, which is unfortunate that our section doesn't get, you know, a wild card bid for even at least one weight,
One way. Yep.
because realistically you guys are all so good wrestlers that you guys could have all placed at the state tournament. And speaking of, 2 weeks later after that performance, you're at the state tournament for the first time, and in your very first outing there, you're on the podium. So talk me through the 2 weeks of those training practices at Iona, walking through that tunnel for the first time. Like, what's going through your head?
Yeah. So leading up that training was definitely some of the hardest training, 100%. Just like any big tournament, you're going all out for it. So, that whole time I was training 3 times a day. I think yeah, it was first week we had school, but we were going out to school. We were training for 3 hours just about every day, going home, recovering, managing our weight good and stuff like that. Then the second week we were on the winter break, and that's when like the workouts really started amp up the week of. We had morning 10 a.m. sessions. Then we had another session at 2,
Mm.
and then one at like 6 o'clock. And
Wow.
yeah, so we were going nonstop that whole week, every single one of us, and it was tough. It was brutal. All the workouts were, pretty hard in their own ways, especially just for the sole fact that you're cutting weight.
Yeah.
Your body's starting to be exhausted a little bit, and that was a big thing was making sure that whatever I was putting in my body was good energy and was gonna give me energy, but it wasn't too heavy and it wasn't gonna stick on to me.
And what were some of um like those good energies and stuff like that that you're able to put into your body that you might recommend for people that are in the same weight cutting scenario, nutrition wise, trying to put the correct eats in their body? Because even as a coach, I always have kids coming up to me like, "Hey, what should I eat tonight? What should I drink tonight?"
Yeah, 100%. The biggest thing with cutting weight is realizing what you float in the morning and how much you gain throughout the day. So the float is like the biggest thing. Like for me, I can float about 2 or 2.5 pounds in the night. So if I was on weight perfectly, then I'm gonna eat about 2.5 pounds of food. And like if it's even then, like if we're like still 3 or 4 days out, if I'm losing 2.5 pounds at night, I'll eat 4 pounds of food, and lose the rest. But yeah, the biggest thing I was be putting in my body is a lot of tricking your body into making fats, using fats as carbs, because carbs are gonna stick onto you. So you can find those fatty foods that you know your body can you can kind of trick your mind and body into thinking it is a carb, where you're gonna get a lot of energy and stuff like that. that was like the biggest thing that helped me be able to perform at maximum level, but not putting myself in a predicament of not making weight.
And speaking at performing at that maximum level, like I mentioned, you're at the state tournament and you make that podium. Talk me through match by match how you were feeling as the tournament got on. Especially that moment winning that blood round match, such an important like that feeling of I made the podium. Now let's see where we make it.
My New York State rundown.
Yes.
Yeah,
Especially like after winning that blood round match, that feeling of, oh my God, I made the podium. And now it's
yeah,
like where are we gonna go from there?
yeah. So match by match, the first match we started off with, it was forget the kid we had. He ended up taking third in the tournament. I wrestled him to like a 1 point match, like right off the bat. So that was tough. And the hardest thing really about the New York State tournament, the wrestle backs, especially losing early on, is that it takes you're waiting a while to wrestle again.
Yeah,
Like so you gotta time your naps and all that stuff. Getting even like keeping even if you're not up for a while, just getting a little jogging, just making sure the blood's still
still
pumping and
warm,
stuff.
yeah.
So then like my second match to make it, or second, third match, whatever I think it was my second match, yeah. To make it to day
Second
two and
day,
go
yeah.
to the second day of the tournament. Um I was going to the match and I was feeling good. I was ready to dominate and got in there, hit a beautiful takedown. I think it was a double. And then right off the bat, I remember the kid he tried Granbying and then got Granbying and got up and I couldn't return him, so I ran him out of bounds. And I knew, all right, he's gonna do a Granby again. I could tell this kid likes it. And I spiral ride, got my half, and as soon as he went over, I just cartwheeled over and I just stuck him right there. And I was
Yeah.
like, all right, good. Like he's done. I had him right there. I set him up right into a trap. And then it was the second day, it was my blood round match. And a funny story about that match was, I remember I was warming up and I didn't know if I fully made weight or not because the guy on the scale, because I was so close that day, and the guy on the scale was like, he didn't give me a definite answer, and I was so sucked out. I was like, all right, I made weight. I'm good. And obviously I did. Um, I'm about to go up, and they call my name up to the loudspeaker, and I was like, what's happening here? And the kid I had in the blood round just he had a medical forfeit, and I was like, oh no way! Like this is how this is gonna go down, and I was so ready for that match the whole time, and I was like, all right, well we made the podium now. It's time to wrestle and keep on going, and you know try to see how high I can place.
And I believe you finished, it was seventh or
I think it was eighth,
it was
eighth,
eighth.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah, yeah. So through all those matches, really, I was the only sophomore in that weight class,
Yeah,
and
you were the youngest guy in your bracket
yeah,
that
and
tournament.
I just remember it was hard. But I just remember giving all those kids real. I think I went to triple OT my last match for
Yeah, it was
seventh
an
and eighth.
overtime match.
Yeah,
Yeah. I remember
overtime
that.
match, and I think I was literally about to win, and I think I literally fell over the guy. I was honestly so tired. Um, and then I actually had a rematch with the kid who he got third in the weight class, and I remember I got an early takedown. I had the lead. I went to go for another takedown on my double, and the biggest thing going back to the double is you can never keep your hips high.
Mm.
Hips are high, someone can send you right over, and he sent me over with a lat drop, and I was able to fight off my back, obviously, but I gave up 5 points there.
5 point
You got
swing
back
there. Yeah.
pains, yep. So it was hard to battle back from that, and then I got out, and then I think it was yeah, I was 2 point, I was just a takedown away, and I remember I was literally about to score on him, and time ran out.
And then, so from then, taking eighth in the tournament, continuing in the off season with events and competing. Unfortunately, somewhere along the way, you sustained a shoulder injury. Um, you were able to have a few matches throughout your junior season, but unfortunately, at the end of your season, you were unable to compete at the Catholic State tournament, which I honestly think was better for your health and longevity.
Oh,
Um,
100%.
especially with aspirations to compete at the collegiate level. but I'm sure in the moment that that's a heartbreaking thing to have
Oh
to
yeah, it
hear
sucks.
and deal with. So how did you, battle through that and overcome that obstacle to kind of excel through that, have a healthy senior year so you can compete at the collegiate level too?
Yeah, so I mean, it was very heartbreaking, as you know. I actually went to the Catholic States that year just to support my teammates
Mhm.
and stuff like that. I was like, damn, if I was healthy, I knew I could have won that weight class I was
Yeah,
at. I was feeling, my confidence was good, but I was heartbroken.
yeah,
And even throughout the matches I wrestled for the team, just to help the team out, like I was losing matches I shouldn't have been losing. It was hard. So like
yeah,
even getting the mental clarity that of almost like go everything losing those matches, going through my mind was like I'm not a good wrestler. Like, what am I doing? Like negative thoughts. So really
yeah.
the hardest part was challenging was breaking through those mental thoughts of just knowing, these are the circumstances right now, but it doesn't make you a better wrestler. So that whole off season leading up, I was training like an animal. Same thing, training in college rooms and just overall being around the guys that are at the top level, not
Mhm.
even in the country but in the world, and really picking their brains on how their confidence is key and how they exercise their mind and how they're able to get these top class results that is very hard to do.
And if you're able to remember, what was some of that advice that they were able to share with you that stuck with you to carry you through that?
So one of the biggest things was writing down your goals. That's the biggest thing that everyone does, writing down your goals and setting mini goals each day of just simple stuff like 1% better every day. That stuff, like setting a new standard for yourself every day, not staying complacent, even if it's one day. Like simple as, oh, let's say hypothetically, I did 10 pulls today. I'm gonna try to get 11 pull-ups, 12 pull-ups. Just simple stuff of really challenging you and building that confidence of knowing that you can do something.
Mhm. And and then also like you mentioned being around, Ferrari and a lot of world class athletes, how did also being around, the colleges too, doing probably some visits and things, where did that decision lead you to Iowa?
Yeah, so basically, I was training out at Campbell for a little bit. I got invited to their prospect camp. I was in touch with their coaches for a little bit. I went out there. I was picking some of their guys' brains out and stuff like that. And then it was not like a recruiting like camp or anything. I went out
Mhm.
to a camp in Iowa just to be around those guys, like elite camp. And as you know, my coach, John Deagle, he was an Iowa wrestler.
Yeah.
So a lot of the head clinicians were the Brands brothers, Nelson Brands. You had Gabe Arnold around there, even Angelo, Ryder Block, all these really high level guys. All like the starting lineup was just
Yeah.
around, and just being around those guys like was like awesome. I kind of felt like almost at home because like the way Terry was running the practice was exactly how John runs the practice. And right off the bat, of course Terry came up was talking to me about John and stuff like that. And one of my Empire teammates, Will Carano, who's there right now, he's wrestling there too. I was talking to him a lot, but I kind of hit off the bat with Terry immediately. He kind of like reminded me of a lot of like John, and we just connect really. And even through the camp, I was staying after to get more workouts in. He was really pushing me and stuff like that. I was
Mhm.
wrestling not even just the camp guys, but also the guys on the actual team, and showing them that I can wrestle with you. I can stick with like with your level. Like it's not going to be you're not going to be able to bully me. And just being around that, I believe I really caught Terry's attention and stuff like that, especially just picking Terry's brain out on his mindset and what it was like for him during his time period. To be in the Olympics, winning NCAA's, all that stuff like that, and you know, before literally it was right before I was about to leave the camp. Him and Tom, his brother, came up to me and was like, "Listen, we really loved how you wrestled. You know, we really could see you as an asset, and we'd love to come out. We'd love you to come up for an official visit." And the rest is history.
That's amazing.
Yeah,
That's really amazing.
yeah.
So when is like the official like start date for you to start your semester? Have you figured out like the academic schedule yet so far?
So I gotta still figure out my academic schedule and stuff like that with like majoring and stuff like that. I did say if you saw it for Iona they posted I want to do pre-chiropractic. I want to be a
Nice.
chiropractor, but I think I'm leaning towards doing something else now. I'm taking interest in like finance and stuff. So I'm probably gonna I think I want to go into my first year like undecided, especially my my older siblings, they change their majors and like just do they always told me to just do undecided your first year because you really
Mhm.
like you know as you probably know too being going through all college stuff like
Yeah.
that, you know you really don't know what you want to do till you know you're out of school and
Maybe
stuff
even
and
yeah.
have that mindset. Even my brother, he was right now trying to become a teacher. He didn't really think he was gonna do that when he was my age at all. So I'm just gonna play it out slowly and not rush into a major and you know waste more money than I have to and stuff like that.
Yeah, 100%. Definitely start off undecided. Take care of your like your prereqs, like your core requirements, because
Yeah,
those are core requirements for just about any major minor that you're gonna choose. So knock out because those are usually the courses that back people up from finishing like a degree or from graduating on time. Um, so you're definitely on the right start. You know what you're doing, and you definitely got the right people around you to help you out. And like I said, we're definitely excited to see you compete at the next level and see all your success and to share all that too. Um, Seeing you in that black and gold singlet, it's going to be
yeah,
exciting.
yeah.
And
I can't wait.
even with former high school teammates even competing with you at that level. I know we just finished up an episode with Sean Deagle, who's competing for Penn State, which is a hot rivalry team for where you're going to
Yep.
be. Um, I already spoke to him about kind of like his thoughts on seeing the Empire guys excelling to the D1 level, with Kovacs, Kelly having that season with Banghamton, him at Penn State, you at Iowa. You guys are really building a culture at Iona and Empire. What are some of your thoughts on the culture that's being brewed there?
Yeah, for Iona, it's awesome. Everyone really is. As going back to the Catholic States match with between me and Kevin, Costa, and Max, and all that. Like, you could tell we all really are one big family in the sense that you know we're all pushing each other next level. We're always here for each other, whether it's wrestling or non-wrestling related. You know, I talk to these guys every day still. Like, it's even though they're in college and you don't see them, you know, as much anymore. Like, we're talking every day. Like we haven't like they haven't left yet, and you know just we're so close to the point we want to see all each other all exceed at the highest level. So
Yeah.
being in that room, everyone's pushing each other to be better every day, going to practice and you know going through hard workouts together. You know, it all pays off. Just having that good culture around it's almost contagious. Even like our JV guys that you know they want to get to the level we're at of just being successful in you know the high school stage. It feeds off, so everyone really is there to push each other, and we have a great coaching system too. Everyone's there supporting you and making sure you can accomplish those goals. You know, technical wise and even mental wise.
Yeah, and I can even like attest to that firsthand, like seeing how much of that camaraderie that you guys share at Iona, you know, you still showing up to support your teammates when you were injured, your alumni, the guys who are in college now coming back, watching you guys still compete. I know even at this year's state championship while I was there, I saw Costa and Justin Shea. Um,
Yep.
coming to just support the guys who are competing, George Johnson, Trifaldi, Fotis. Um, so you guys are so supportive of each other, like you said. Like even when you guys are competing in finals, your whole team surrounding the mat, cheering each other on, getting each other's backs, making sure that you guys are always there for each other. Pretty like wrestling those matches with each other. Like you're not alone out there on that mat. And that's a very special thing to have as a team, not having that selfishness and being selfless to allow your teammates to succeed with you. It's a
Yeah.
very beautiful thing that you guys have at that program.
No, yeah, it truly is something special, and I'm excited for you know guys like Fotis, Dorian, you know they're the young bucks now, and seeing their generation now go through, you know I can't wait. Like I remember being in their shoes and like seeing how good we were as a team then. Like for that group, like really the sky's the limit for them. I truly believe they're going to be probably the best wrestlers to go through Iona without a doubt.
100%. And
Mm.
something that I just remember now that I forgot to touch base upon, with us talking about the culture that's brewing, and you're a stat holder in the Iona Prep Wrestling program with, I believe it's the most falls in program history, which
Yeah, most.
congratulations for that. That's an
Thank you.
incredible stat to have. Did you know that you were in the lead for this, or was this a surprise to you?
No, so honestly, the first competition was Sean Deagle's original like all times win holder, and I'm really close to Sean. I talk to Sean all the time. As soon as Sean has a chance to come back from Penn State, I literally am always just texting like, "Yo, let's train, let's train, let's train." So like that was the other little like rivalry still. I'd always go up to him like, "Yo, get ready, I'm gonna beat the record and stuff like that." It was funny even with his dad being my coach and all that. Um, even when I first got it, he's like, "Congrats, you beat my son."
You finally did it. Oh my
Yeah,
God.
and no one actually really knew that I had like that like 100 of my wins were by 101 wins actually were by like fall, until we actually had our banquet and Australia was like in the most pins of all time, and I was like, damn, I mean like that makes sense. Everyone like knows like if I get on top of you, I can get something good. I'll turn you
You're getting them
100%.
stuck. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm getting them stuck. So, I knew I definitely had throughout like the seasons really, like yeah, I probably have like the most falls, but like it was kind of like in the back of my mind. It wasn't like something I was thinking about. So like
Yeah.
hearing that stat was like pretty cool. Even like Fama, like when he called, I was like, damn, 101 falls. I was like, shit, I didn't even know I had
Yeah, that
that.
really is such a crazy number, and like it really attests to like how you mentioned having a strong top game, having a strong wrestling foundation. I mean, it speaks to your character and your wrestling.
Yep.
And before we cap off and we sign off, what would you have as like advice, or you know any experiences that you'd like to share with, like you mentioned, those young bucks coming up who look at you and go, I want to be that guy, I want to be the next Paulo Ciatto, I want to be the next guy to commit to the big D1 program to compete at that next level. What would you share as far as advice with those guys looking to make that name for themselves?
So honestly, a big thing that I usually keep private, but like I become more open about is that really for a majority of my wrestling career,
Hmm.
I never really fully loved the sport. Honestly, like there was a good portion of the time that I was doing it because really was a lot of wrestlers. They don't play like football and stuff because either one they're undersized
Hmm.
or they can't catch a ball or anything like that and stuff like that. But I really only did it because I was like, all right, it's a sport I'm good at, and like I was good at it, but I don't really love it. I did not like competing. It was hard for me to really embrace those hard practices. All the way really up till my freshman year after that season when I was like, that changed my mind of seeing even like your brother. I remember him my freshman year. I was talking to him going to the New York State tournament, like wishing him good luck and stuff like that. And I went up to go watch that year, and seeing that whole environment of how
Hmm.
like cool it was and stuff like that, and really seeing the success and like all like, honestly just a praise that you get, it made me fall in love with the sport and have fun with it. Like realize that this is not wrestling is just a small part of your life that in the grand scheme of things you can win all the big tournaments, but it's not the end goal for your whole life, obviously.
Hmm.
So the biggest thing I realized is to get the results of these guys, even not even at this level, but the levels above me, like your Jack's Forces, your Bo Bassett's and stuff like that. All those guys, what I realized, they love the sport of wrestling. They want to have fun. It's fun for them. So if you can find a way to make the sport fun, even though I tell everyone it's grueling. Like a joke,
Yeah.
people around me always have. Like I always joke with Justin Shade's dad, who I'm really close with, that only fun part about wrestling is this. Just getting that hand to face. It really is like funny, especially being a wrestler yourself. That really is the only fun thing in the grand scheme of things. But like, if you're able to make these practices fun and realize that it's fun to push yourself, it's fun to be in those battles in the room,
Yeah.
scrapping. Like that weight cut is fun. The fact that you're on that treadmill, you're pushing yourself. You're realizing like this is I'm doing this because I want to be that guy.
Yeah.
So if you can find that way to really embrace the grind and make it fun, not even just a job, the results will come. Just like having fun with the sport and loving it, wanting to watch film, wanting to talk to the guys, like as I said, like Terry Brands, all these guys, like really realize, you know, this is fun. Like all these guys have fun, and that's even a big thing. Going back to Iowa, a lot of guys get the misconception about Iowa that it's Robotville. Like you go there, you wrestle hard, this and that.
Constant drill practicing.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
it's there's structure obviously and stuff like that, but all those guys, you don't see a single of those guys going, oh, I hate it. Like everyone like smiles up to here,
Yeah.
like they're having a great time. None of those guys are unhappy where they're at. Nothing. They all just love it. Like, and that's the biggest thing that like I realize that all levels like they love it. You just got to have that great support system, that foundation, and great people in your corner, which I've been blessed to have.
And like kind of like elaborating on that, like even when I kind of talk to, like the kids that I coach at Farrell and everything like that, I kind of preach to them, be a fan of your own sport, like the same way that if you're a basketball player, you're watching the NBA and the college games,
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
If you're a baseball player, you're watching the MLB games, right?
Yeah,
So why are you not going to do that with
for
wrestling?
wrestling. Yeah,
You're
and
a
there.
wrestler, why not enjoy wrestling as a viewer, as a
Yeah,
spectator, as
and
a
that
wrestler?
that's such a great viewpoint. Like I said something similar like that. I was told one of our guys too. I was like, if you're a quarterback, you're gonna watch 10,000 films of Tom Brady, Patrick Mahomes, and see how these guys do it. If you want to be that wrestler, watch films of your favorite wrestlers. Watch Jordan Burroughs matches. Watch Kyle Dake's matches. Watch these guys that we know as like the American icons for
Yeah,
wrestling, and see their success and really depict it like how you would do for an NFL player. Like
yeah,
that's exactly what helped me out a lot. One of my like inspirations of like a good wrestler that I always watch is it's honestly like a very Evelyn's I feel like, but I love Jordan Burroughs, just his whole style. That's always someone that's been like I try to
amazing
replicate his
athlete.
style to a key. Yeah, like but that and the mentality of getting that Iowa style mentality down. Like seeing those videos, being in the training room and depicting these guys, their style, on camera, in person, like as you said, same way as talking to an NFL player, watching the games and stuff. Like that's exactly what you got to do to fall in love with the sport and get those results technically with your skills, your mentality, really seeing how these guys perform at the very top
Yeah, especially if you want to be that guy at the top level or be at the top of that level.
level. Yeah, exactly.
And me personally, um, I don't have any more experiences to share. As far as that goes, if you have anything else to share with the people at home before signing off.
Yeah, I'd say the biggest thing, very simple thing is, hope everyone stays in, good health and stuff, but always remember this is a sport at the end of the day and have fun with it. Kind of reiterating what I said, just have fun with wrestling. Wrestling is fun, but you got to make it fun.
100%. Like I said, like being a fan of your own sport is really such a crucial aspect to any activity that you're a part of because it's supposed to. Why do it if you don't love
Exactly.
it?
You can't get the results if you don't love it. You can be a great athlete, but you're not gonna get the results if you don't love it. And like a perfect example is that if you watched the NCAA interviews, it kind of a person that also stuck out to me at Iowa too, as far as my commitment was Stephen Buchanan. He reminded me a lot of like my mental aspect. He told me how he really did not like wrestling that much, and he made that public too right after
Yeah, after his
that
tournament.
he did not love it. But once he found that program, Iowa, that he started to love the sport again, and he got his end goal, national champ. So that just shows that proves to show you at the top level, even some of these guys go through that of not even loving the sport fully. They do because they're really good at it. They might be really good at it more than others without loving it. Obviously, like Steve Buchanan, he was already an All American. But
Exactly.
that just shows you that how much of a difference that makes. Because as anyone knows, you see it all the time. It's more so at the heavyweight level because of how it is. There's All Americans who go against Gable Stevenson. They're getting tacked. Like, and
Yeah, and
it just,
quick.
yeah, and quick. Like, that just shows you how much of a level jump you have to make from even an All American to a national champ.
Because you can even have like the talent too. Because I believe there's like even an old saying where I think it's hard work outworks talent when talent doesn't work hard. So you
Yeah,
could have the ability, the genetics, of being an athlete, but if you're not putting the work in, enjoying the work that you're putting in, the person that is doing that is going to exceed you.
they're going to succeed, and you'll see them jump levels drastically. And even like in our own section, you've seen people who were not that guy their freshman or even sophomore year, and they're top guys now.
and and even guys who had beaten them in a season ago or maybe even earlier in the season, they're either being challenged or they're beating them now, like they're
Yeah,
they're jumping that level where to guys they were
exactly.
losing to they're beating, and now they're majoring those guys and they've jumped that next level. So it's constantly fine tuning your wrestling and making sure that you're staying sharp as a wrestler to kind of evolve. Evolving is a very important aspect of wrestling.
Exactly. You have to evolve. You can't be complacent.
Exact complacency is such a big destroyer, I feel like, in the
Yes.
wrestling community, because especially if you're somewhat successful, right? Like if you come into, say, your freshman year and you're already hitting some success and it's being consistent, you're majoring some guys, winning some good matches. That next year those guys are starting to creep up on you now. Maybe
Yeah,
you're losing some of those matches.
exactly.
Your work ethic hasn't shifted. Now you're still staying the same, nothing's increased, and that's typically how some of these guys fall short in their end goal.
100%. That's why, as you said, the complacency really is almost like it's almost the devil. You have to be confident, but you have to realize that you're not the best yet.
Yes.
You're nowhere near the best. Even the best guys that we consider the best guys, they're still not considering themselves the best. So
Yeah.
always having that mindset that yeah, out there somewhere in the world, there's someone better than you. Just having that mindset, that's what's gonna help you just always succeed.
When I was training, something that I always had in the back of my mind that would kind of give me like that extra step for my hard sprint or that extra energy for those goes at practice is someone, like especially like during season when we were in New York, was there's someone in New York right now who's outworking me. I cannot let that
Exactly.
happen.
You
There's
cannot let that
somebody
happen.
who's putting extra work in right now that I'm not doing. I can't let
Exactly.
that happen.
Yeah.
And these are kind of the things that you have to keep replaying to yourself on repeat to, kind of keep or at least for me, it was to keep motivated myself of I can't let myself fall short of this goal. I can't do less work than I did yesterday. I have to be doing the
Exactly.
same or more because there's somebody who's doing that right now and I'm not.
Exactly. You have to have that. You have to have the competitive mindset of knowing that you get that work all your opponents.
And like I said, for me, that's all I have for today.
Mhm.
For me, signing off, this is Daniel Adams, and I was joined by Paolo Ciatto,
Thank you
2023
for having me.
CHSA Sectional Championship. Brother, it's been a pleasure. And just before we go, I guess I do have one last thing. Um, Seeing you from a freshman to now, dude, has been an amazing pleasure as us to watch. You're watching, like we mentioned, your evolve, your growth in the sport so far has been amazing, and we really do wish the best for you at the next level, because it's been an honor on our part, really.
Thank you. And back to everything I was saying from, you and all the Farrell guys out there. My cousin went to Farrell, obviously. And,
Yeah,
you guys, even through all the competitive mindsets of, everyone, competing for that spot at the state tournament and all throughout the season, I always felt, the warmth and welcome of, at the end of the day, we're all one big family. So I really appreciate all these 4 years. You guys are people I'm gonna remember for the rest of my life.
thank you, brother, and we're honestly very honored to hear that because we really do try to provide such a familial feeling because we do understand what it takes to do what you guys do, to be in the situation and environment that you guys are in. And we know at the end of the day that we're the same. We have the same goal. We have the
Not a
same
single.
aspirations. We all want to be the best. That doesn't make
Exactly.
any of us different. The only thing that's different is we wear a different singlet. You go to a
Exactly.
different school, that's it. So we
Yeah.
understand that, and we know that at the end of the day, the end goal when we do win that tournament, we rep the red and black. We go to the state tournament.
Sure.
We all represent the CHSAA, and that's the end.
Exactly.
So we're happy that we're able to provide that for you.
Thank you. I really appreciate it.
Ready? And like I said, and if there's anything that we could continue to provide for you or do for you, never hesitate to reach out for us because you're our guy.
Yeah, no, 100%. I will definitely be keeping in contact with you guys, and hopefully, if I have a couple breaks here and there, hopefully I can make it down to one of the big Catholic tournaments and see everyone.
And listen, if you, even if you want, come by down to the Farrow room. Like you said, you got your cousin who graduated from our school. We'll get you in there. We'll get you beating up on some of our guys. We would love to have you down.
100%. No, definitely. We could set that up. I'm really down for that.
That'd be awesome. And God bless, brother.
Yeah, thank you. You too.
Of course. And then